25 car know that he was in an accident this week. No, not in the Indy car, but in his go-kart, and really racked up his left leg. And boy, was he in pain yesterday. He's hoping to be able to make the run without any trouble. On board with second place, Nigel Mansell, as he continues his pursuit of Paul Tracy. Back at the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach as Paul Tracy, the leader, has shredded his left rear tire and is limping for the pits. Nigel Mansell will take over the lead of the race. Jack Arut's right there.
And Paul, this is 7 laps earlier than they had hoped to bring the car on pit road. He skids to the stop, and look at the condition of the tire. Jerry Breon pulls it off and puts it back on. This is unfortunate because part of the problem was they had fuel mileage problems in Australia. They had solved them, and in talking to Richard Buck, and now they've stalled the car. He said that this was going to work in their favor, that caution early on, and they were stockpiling fuel mileage. That's all gone away now.
19 seconds in and out for Paul Tracy, but he fell well down through the order. Now in 6th place as Nigel Mansell assumes the lead.
When he ran into trouble, he had an 8.5 second lead over Mansell, who you see here. Now Tracy has led 57% of the laps this year going into this race. You see what happened to him here. The left rear tire of Paul Tracy shredding suddenly. That's the back straightaway there. He was lucky or very skillful to control the car and bring it into the pits as fast as he did.
Well, the whole trick, Sam, is going to be why did it shred? Why did it go bad? Tires don't just blow on their own. So there's a good chance, and that's what we'll have to watch for. They might have bent something while he was blowing or shredding that tire up.
So Nigel Mansell now sits in the lead, nearly 7 seconds ahead of Al Unser Jr. 7 seconds further back from that is Scott Goodyear, and then Mario Andretti is unchallenged another 10 seconds further back from Goodyear. Look at the interval here. We keep track of Mansell and Al Unser Jr. first and second place, and of course as they come to the pit stops, that interval will be critical.
And also keep in mind, Paul Tracy came in with that blown left rear tire, but it won't make any difference because he was well within the time frame that he would have stopped for fuel normally. So these guys, even though they have a bigger gap on Tracy now, as soon as they pit, it'll all go back to normal again. And his pit stop was only longer because he killed the engine.
Word from the Penske team is that Paul Tracy ran over some debris that shredded the tire. Terrible luck. He was so strong here just as he was at Phoenix. This time, though, debris gets him. As we take a look at Mansell continuing to thread his way through this field. And he is having, as one might expect, some trouble from time to time figuring out the slower traffic that he must move through. In some cases, there are drivers that he is not familiar with, and sometimes he just has to be very, very careful and hope that they move out of the way.
Yes, but Mansell has studied IndyCar racing very carefully in the last few months, and he knows a lot about who has done what over the years here, and he must be fully aware that he's got the great master of Long Beach currently closing in on him. I mean, little Al has won this thing 4 times. He knows how to pace himself and his tires through a race like this, and I wouldn't be a bit surprised if Mansell keys off the man behind him rather than wondering about his own pace.
Part of his studies, by the way, for IndyCar racing is Jimmy Vasser has a problem. They're trying to get him rolling again. He had a little fire and they brought it in the pits, but now on the pit road he's got a problem again.
Vasser, you'll remember, was 3rd just 2 weeks ago in Phoenix, so this is a great disappointment. He would like to have performed well here in front of the LA audience.
I was going to say the way that Mansell studied Scott Pruitt in the pits was by looking at videotapes of every race, including every onboard camera he could get his hands on. He's really gone to school on IndyCar racing.
And that's good that he did that, and it shows the amount of interest Paul Buck. He doesn't realize or doesn't know until he runs with them, but these guys' personalities change often through different types of tracks.
Raul BOESEL makes his stop. He was running 8th just prior to coming into the pits.
He was, of course, 2nd at Phoenix 2 weeks ago, and one of the quiet men of racing, a real accomplished guy, though.
But what a great race driver he is. Tremendously agile in almost any kind of race car.
And this is lap
car champion.
This is lap 39 on all the cars. This is Robbie Gordon in. All the cars are going to have to be coming in the pit. None of them should be able to go past 40 laps.
They look over the back of that car while they refuel it and change tires. No obvious work other than the routine maintenance being done on Robbie Gordon's car. So his first stop here at the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach is complete.
It takes a long time to fuel them. It looked like a slow pit stop. Really, it wasn't. It's just that the cars right now at 40 laps are really just about empty.
18.5 seconds, long stop. Danny Sullivan is in now. Sullivan was running in 5th place prior to this stop, and they expect his teammate Al Unser Jr. to come in next time around. So they bring Sullivan in first, get it cleared so this man, Little Al, can make the turn in.
And also remember, Paul, that the telemetry that tells the pits when the guys really need fuel. Here's Little Al in now.
So Al Unser Jr. comes in for a stop, Jack.
And Paul, this is a scheduled pit stop. They're trying to extend their fuel mileage window. They will change tires, and now it falls off the jack for a second. The air hose not going in properly. They are going to exchange tires, fill it with fuel. They radioed to Al Unser Jr. about 7 laps ago that he could go ahead and turn things up a bit. That means he could expend a little bit more fuel mileage, but he's away. Remember, though, there is a pit speed limit here, and a lot of the drivers are getting real close to violating it.
Well, of course, that's a contest, isn't it?
As they come out of the pits, there is a battle for 3rd place, as Scott Goodyear is sitting just ahead of Al Unser Jr. and may not be fully aware of it. As they come into traffic, Emerson Fittipaldi slides in between them. Nigel Mansell and Mario Andretti have not yet stopped. They have completed 41 laps and run 1st and 2nd as Roberto Guerrero makes his stop. Guerrero was running 7th as he came into the pits, and he rolls back into the fight. But now here is Nigel as he came into the pits, and he rolls back into the fight. But now here is Nigel Mansell making his first stop. Gary Gerald is right there.
Tommy Wirtz will be working the left front. The chief mechanic waves into a stop. The quiet man hits the mark perfectly. He said very little on the radio. He thanked his crew as the race got started for getting him ready to go. He's had little to say since. A quick drink, no wing changes up front, everything looking routine. Mansell off the jacks. We've got him under 15 seconds on this stop.
If you look at the cars leaving, Paul, all that water or that liquid coming off there is actually the water that's squirting on there in case they spill any fuel to dilute the fuel so it doesn't catch fire. So it's water that the people are seeing.
Running in 2nd place at the time he came in, Mario Andretti, Nigel's teammate, in and out of the pits, completing his first stop.
Before the pit stops, Mansell had a 5-second lead over Al Unser Jr., but that margin was being eroded slightly lap after lap. We'll see now with the fuel in the car, the new tires, exactly what the gap will be when it stabilizes.
You watch Mario leave and you saw the stickers on his tires there. That's a rare thing during a pit stop. That's a rare thing on the pit stop because he left the pits with a left front tire with a brand new one. Usually they seat these tires in during the practice sessions.
Nigel Mansell still coming out trying to heat his tires up. You saw Scott Goodyear maneuver into position around him, and Al Unser Jr. is just behind him now as they scream for the line on the pit straight shoreline drive here. And Paul Tracy has been in and out, of course, with that tire and got in and out early, and that puts him in the lead of the race with Scott Goodyear sitting in 2nd place just ahead of Mansell. There comes Scott Goodyear through as we look at FABI. There is Tracy. Scott Goodyear is right behind him right now, and Mansell is just behind Goodyear.
Now that shows that Paul Tracy in the 12th car, Goodyear right behind him. It shows that the pit stop with the blown tire really didn't hurt him.
Well, Mansell's fallen back just a little bit now off of Goodyear. There he is coming through. Paul Tracy at the head of this field, and Scott Goodyear, these two fellow Canadians, now stalking him. We'll be back. Back at the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach, Paul Tracy now being hotly pursued by Scott Goodyear. Nigel Mansell sits in 3rd, but he is a good 3 seconds back. There you see the interval as they come into a very crowded corner. And Paul Tracy coming up behind Teo Fabi, currently running in 10th place. You're looking down. These great aerial pictures are courtesy of the Goodyear Blimp Eagle, which is based in nearby Carson. There she is overhead. Today's pilot is Charles Russell. Paul Tracy, the leader, despite having problems early on.
Remember, we are looking at 1st and 2nd place, 2 young Canadian drivers.
Going right by Teo Fabi, right there. Teo got lapped by those guys. And Scott Goodyear's in the blue car right behind. And as they come off the turns, the hairpin, which you're going into right now, watch the straightaway speeds.
I was on a plane with Scott Goodyear the other day. He was so frazzled he was late for a sponsors meeting. When he gets in the race car, though, he's one of the calmest of all. And those who monitor the radios, you see him tear by Teo Fabi, who lets him by on the inside there and thinks of counterattacking. But once Goodyear is in the car, he becomes utterly calm, speaks very clearly to his crew chief, Derek Walker.
Here was Al Unser Jr. as he tried to get around Nigel Mansell just a few moments ago. locked the brakes, almost went off in the runoff zone, got it back under control. Same situation, Bobby, your nephew.
Yes, well, there's the two guys. Here's a car cam shot. There's two guys right there that have capabilities of driving deeper in the turns, and I think any other driver, Little Al momentarily locked his front tire. He almost didn't make it, but those two guys, it's like two big bull elephants hitting each other head on.
Well, Danny Sullivan was one of the first to break that pit stop speed limit, and they gave him a stop-and-go penalty. And he came in, and then he broke the speed limit again, so they're giving him the black flag again for another stop-and-go. Here's Paul Tracy, the leader of the race, but not by a very wide margin. About a second. Scott Goodyear is behind him and looking for every chance he can.
Tracy looks like he's just a little bit loose in the rear end right now. I watched him as he comes off some of the turns. The rear end twitches just a little bit now. That isn't good because the tires will only get hotter quicker that way, Paul.
And that is a little bit of Tracy's style, isn't it, Bobby? I mean, he has a very aggressive style. When the car begins to slide, he corrects into the slide. I think he likes to drive a car that way, even if it means heating up the tires a little.
Sam, he'll set the car up that way, but if somebody pushes him hard, it just makes the old rear tires get hotter quicker.
Yep.
Paul Tracy looking for a victory. Once he scores his first, I personally think, Sam, he's going to be unstoppable.
Well, there's a big psychological thing in racing. It's very hard to win your first race. And then suddenly, in a way, when you realize that it can be easy. 2 weeks ago at Phoenix, Paul Tracy was 2 laps ahead. He probably could have cruised home to a victory very easily. Instead, he wound up in a collision with another car. Surely, he's benefited from that experience.
Lynn St. James, the number 90 J.C. Penney car, comes in for a stop.
Not a happy weekend for her. She qualified next to last. Has not really found the speed here that you would expect out of the car and engine combination that she has.
She runs 21st. This is actually her first stop of the race, and she was able to carry that stop to lap 45.
It's a tough track. It's a hard track to come here your first year and do well at it. So I think Lynn's doing well considering everything, and she'll certainly do better next year.
Looking at the race summary at the conclusion of 49 laps. Paul Tracy, the leader of the race, averaging 93 miles an hour. Scott Brayton, the only one officially out at the moment.
You know, at Phoenix 2 weeks ago, luck in many ways was the story of the race. Mario inheriting the race from back in 6th place. Paul Tracy, as you see Nigel Mansell come up very close to Fabi. Paul Tracy, in a way, has luck looking over his shoulder right now. Wouldn't you guys say? Because when he shredded that tire, he was close to